Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to my channel. I am Monet and you are watching Life is Monet. I need to share with you guys what has been eating your girl up. It will not let me go. I am in the shackles of paranormal romance. I can't seem to break free. Anytime I try to leave and read something else, it'd be cute, it'd be a moment, and I'd be right back. I cannot seem to break the hold that it has on me, and honestly I'm not even sure that I want to. It's the perfect season. I just finished college. I graduate literally tomorrow, and I have a small break between now and grad school for January, and so I'm gonna read what my heart desires, and my heart desires paranormal romance. There are so many books that I need to talk to you guys about. I have been running through series, and I'm hoping to kind of put this out there, put some new ones on your map, see how you're doing. If you watched my Finding New Favorites vlog where I was shopping for books, one of the books that I ended up purchasing was Guild from Barnes & Nobles. Been having a great time with those. Can't wait to review those for you guys in this video. And so I hope to put something new on the map and also talk about some old classics, because as you can see, I have been hunting for paranormal romance hardcover books, and because these books are so old, I'm talking like 2000, 2002, 2004, they are so cheap to find because I've been thrifting them, and that's also been a really fun experience. It's going around my local used bookstores, half-price books, any place that I can find secondhand books. I've been hunting for the hardback covers, and so I'm literally never letting them go. I think the most I ever paid for one of the paranormal romance hardbacks that I've been purchasing is maybe $6. I don't know. I'm having so much fun finding them, and I can't wait to talk about that in this video as well. So if you want to know what's been holding me tight, has my edges gripped, keep watching. Okay, so I think it's best to go ahead and get these bad boys out of the way. Now, these are self-published by the author Raven Kennedy. She also has other books, but I have not read them, and I don't plan to. Honestly, I'm just so content with the Guild series, and so there is a fourth book for this one that's scheduled for May 2022, and I can't believe I have to wait that long because I ate these books up. Are they the best written books I've ever read? No. Most of the main characters POV is literally like word vomit, and that's kind of annoying. However, there are many good things to talk about in this series. So let me put them in order for you. We have Guild. Now my copies are a little beat up because I am not the gentlest reader. There's people who buy paperback books and read them, and it literally looks like they never touched it, never opened it before in their life. I stare in awe because anytime I look at a paperback, I'm destroying it. Like, I'm so destructive with my paperback. But unfortunately, these don't come in hardback. There are some special editions that have been put out by the Bookish Box, and the fan art for these are so phenomenal. Like, this is some of the best fan art that I've seen in a long time. Okay, so we have Guild, which is book 1, and then we have Glint, which is book 2, and then we have Gleam, which is book 3, and I can't think of what book 4 is going to be called, but it's gonna be something along the lines of Guild. So let me set us up real quick. So now that I don't have to actually physically hold these things up, let's talk about them. We are following this character named Orin. In my head, I call her Oreen, and I know that's not right. I believe that the name is Orin. I was reading these books. I was reading Gleam when Raven Kennedy announced on her Instagram that Guild, which is book 1, now has an audiobook. So if you're someone who wants to read it, but you're looking to listen to it on audio, book 1's audio is out. I have not heard it because, again, by the time they released the audiobook, I was already reading the third one, and there's only one audiobook out right now for book 1. Book 2 and 3 do not have an audiobook right now. These are self-published books, so of course you have to give the author a certain amount of patience to get things done because, I mean, they're working solo independently of a publishing company. They are very, very easy to read, and a lot of them are super short. Like, book 1 is literally 283 pages, so recommend, of course, that you just go ahead and grab one. But again, if you're looking for the audiobooks, I don't think you're going to be able to find anything past book 1. So we're following this character named Orin, and she is known as King Midas. It is a King Midas retelling for like the king who could touch anything and turn it to gold. And so she is actually gold herself. Orin is gilded, and she's known as King Midas's favorite because it is believed that he touched her and turned her to gold. So her hair, her skin, her nails, everything about her is literally gold, and he keeps her in a golden cage in this castle, and she's never allowed to leave or interact with anyone. In this world, there is a kind of like, there's 6 kingdoms side by side, and each kingdom has its own ruler, whether it be a king or a queen. But the laws of this land is that whoever sits on the throne, they have to have a magical power. And so each king or queen of one of the 6 kingdoms all have a unique magical ability to them. Now there is, if you read the synopsis on Goodreads, there is a mention of like fae lore or like fays being in this book, but you definitely don't see really any of that in book 1, and it starts to be talked about more in book 2. But even at the end of book 3, we still haven't really dived into like the fae world, because there used to be like an open world between the humans and the fae, and they interacted, and so everybody kind of had magical abilities thanks to the fae and like reproducing. But then something tragic happened, and the fae disconnected from the human world, and so a lot of the bloodlines that used to have magical powers are now being super diluted to the point where it's kind of hard to come by magic. It's not as easily accessible as it was prior, because now it's been like centuries since the fae have been in this world. And so that's why it is a requirement for you to have a magical power to rule the kingdom. And if, let's say, a king has a kid and that kid doesn't have magic, then someone else must rule. And so this is how King Midas comes into power, because in the 6th kingdom where he rules, the queen of the actual royal family does not have any magic, and so she has to marry someone who does have magic in order for her to keep the throne. Now each king and queen are allowed to have what they call saddles, and these are basically like concubines. And so King Midas has about 12 saddles that are super famous for him, but Orin is actually a saddle, but she can never be touched. Like, he just makes her stand there and like watch what's happening. And so you follow Orin as she kind of goes from being trapped in this cage, and even though she's trapped, she believes that King Midas saved her from the life that she was living before. And so there's literally like Stockholm syndrome, where she does not see that he literally controls everything about her until something happens in this book where she has to travel outside of the kingdom, because the kings are doing their own thing. There is like a outer-worldly plot going on where the kingdoms are kind of making political moves against one another, so that is very interesting to read as well. But you're following Orin as she gets captured on her way to like the new kingdom that King Midas is ruling, and she starts to experience stuff outside of King Midas, who has kept her literally locked in the cage for over 10 years. And so she goes through all these changes, and she starts to question whether or not King Midas is actually the hero and the savior that she believes him to be, or if he's actually just taking advantage of her. And so in the 2nd book, I will tell you that this is a very slow burn romance, because you actually don't meet Orin's love interest in book 1 really at all. And then in book 2, you barely see interactions between them. And even in book 3, there's some more interaction. You do get payoff because it's 3 books of you trying to see these 2 characters get together, but unfortunately it is very centered around Orin. And so I do want to put that out there, is that what I found with me reading romance books is that I love a slow burn. I love torture. I'm a masochist. I love when the authors make me wait hundreds of pages for crumbles. And so take that in strides before you guys take any recommendations from this video or any romance video at all. I love to be tortured. I am a masochist. I'm sorry for you. I don't like happiness. I don't like instant love. I want some pining. I want some yearning. I want a ton of roadblocks to be in the way of our main characters. One of the things that I do really like about the series is that Orin has to learn how to break free of not just the physical cage, but the actual emotional and mental cage that King Midas has on her. And so you watched her in all 3 books get stronger and get more independent. And you also get to see him break her down basically for parts, because even when she's outside of the cage, he literally has her like a bird locked in, like in a mental hold. And so while she does meet this very powerful dark ruler, everybody's afraid of him, King Rot, King Ravager, all these kind of things, Aurene saves herself. And that might be like a tiny spoiler, but that's one of the things that I love about this series. And one other series I'm going to talk about in this video is that I love when we have a badass POV character that goes from being like naive and sheltered to breaking free and actually being the savior of their own story. And so I really love that about Aurene, is because she is falling in love with someone who is very feared throughout all the kingdoms. Everybody knows about him and, you know, is afraid of him, but she does not rely on their relationship to break her free. And so there is a really good character arc and character journey that occurs. I don't want to say anything else, but that's pretty much the overall theme that occurs in all three of these books. I was able to buy them from my local Barnes & Noble's store. I have seen them on Amazon, and I recently seen that people who kind of enjoyed Fortuna Swan have enjoyed these books as well. If you liked ACOTAR, I've seen people enjoy these on Goodreads, as well as From Blood and Ash. I liked ACOTAR. I did not like From Blood and Ash, but this I had fun with. I'm so sad that I have to wait until May of next year, because where this book ends, I need more. I'm glad that it's self-published and Kennedy can go at her own pace and put out as many books as she wants. But I will say that it is a very slow journey. So again, take that in spades. The next paranormal romance I ended up reading was by Karen Marie Moning, and that is going to be Dark Fever. It is book 1 in the Fever series. There are 11 total books. I am currently at the end of book 6, and so that just goes to show how I cannot seem to stop reading these freaking books. So in the Fever series, we are following this character named Michaela Lane, but she mostly goes by Mac. Mac has a sister named Alina, and that is the light of her life. They're sisters, they love each other, they're so bonded, they're so close, and they're from Georgia. Mac's sister takes kind of like this study abroad program where she gets to go to Dublin, Ireland to study, and she is brutally murdered. And so when her family finds out, they're trying to communicate between Georgia and Ireland, and there's really nothing being found out about her sister. And so Mac is eating her up. She needs to know what happened to her sister, because the story is literally not adding up. And her sister left her this very weird voicemail on her phone talking about stuff that she's never heard of, she has no idea about, and so she's determined to go to Ireland to figure out what happened to her sister. When she gets there, she finds all of these paranormal things that have been occurring, and so she's determined to find and murder whoever killed her sister, whether they are human or not. There are fays in this world. There are other kind of creatures as well. I can't really pinpoint it. It's just something that you kind of have to read yourself, because there are other people with supernatural abilities that Karen has created to tell this story. One person that Michaela actually meets, or Mac actually meets, is a man named Jericho Barons, and he is not a hero, he's not a savior, he's not sweet or romantic in any way at all. She's kind of like a nuisance, and she has something that he needs to get whatever done that he's trying to pursue. So his interest in her only goes as far as her ability to help him. Otherwise, he could really give a rat's ass about her. And so again, this is another entire series where you are solely following Mac. If you don't like Aurene from in the Guild series, I don't recommend that you continue, because while other stuff does go on and you do get other POVs, she is the main point of the story, and the same thing goes for Mac, especially in the first books. And also, because we're talking like early 2000 paranormal romance, not a lot occurs in these books, and they're like the first 4 books are super short. They're like literally 280 pages, 300 pages, and so you kind of read them and you're like, well dang, like nothing really happened. And so what I do enjoy is that the plot that you have from book 1 until the series ends initially in book 5 is the same plot, but you get to follow Mac as she goes from being this super cool, legally blonde, preppy, pink nails, short skirts, manicured, you know, south of Georgia girl, and then she gets to Dublin and she has to fight fae, and she has to get down and dirty with vampires and killing and slaying, and she goes from like preppy blonde to literally decked out in all black and leather with dark hair, and she cuts it. So like her character transformation is something that I really enjoy following. And Mac is actually every character in this book, as you follow them throughout the series, stays true to the character. I will say that Bonnie does a good job of making her characters individual and nuanced, and everybody acts and reacts the exact way that you would expect them to, whether they're happy or sad or under pressure. No matter what's happening, you can depend on her characters to act like they have done, to act like their characteristics, literally. And so Jericho Barons is one kind of like love interest that she has in this book. There's also another character named Blaine, and so everybody's trying to get after this book called the Sensardu, which is supposed to hold like this dark magic of the world that if they get it, they'll become the ultimate powerful person ever. And Matt can sense the Sensardu, so everybody wants her to stay alive so that she can help them find it, so they can get their hands on it and do whatever evil they plan on doing with it. But she's only tracking the Sensardu because it's tied to her sister, and she wants to know who murdered her sister, and the story just breaks off from there. There is a really cool storyline that occurs through the first 5 books, because by the end of the 5th book, so many things are tied up and so many things are left loose that I can see how what was supposed to be 5 books originally has now reached 11. It's not one of those things where it's like, how do we get a series that was supposed to only be 5 books and now we have 11 books in it? Like, she's dragging it. Actually, I will say that she did a really good job of expanding the plot and like different character arcs, and there's so much more that she could have wrote on from the end of book 5. Now let's talk about book 6. Because in book 6, we follow a completely different character who is kind of annoying and almost irrelevant for most of the series. And so a lot of people did not continue reading the Fever series because of this book. I read it and I wish I had skipped it because the book is utterly horrible and is utterly problematic, and I can't believe it was purchased. And I honestly, like, I understand that if you were excited for a new Fever book when book 6 came out and you got that in your hands, it is horrible. It should be called The Battle of the Pedophiles, because it's literally nothing but a 14-year-old girl being manhandled, mansplained, and controlled by 1,000-year-old creatures who are sexually attracted to her. And yeah, it's just horrible. And honestly, again, of all the characters that we have in the first 5 books, I don't know why Karen would choose to follow this child. So if you want to read these books, listen to me now. My warning is here. Skip book 6. I can literally sum it up to you in 4 sentences what happens that is actually pivotal to the rest of the story. I highly recommend that you just jump back into book 7, like literally skip 6. Jump into book 7. There's an entire glossary in the back of every single thing that happened in book 1, every person that matters and why they matter, the places that matter and why they matter, and the things that matter in the book, what they are and why they matter. So if you're someone who started reading these books in the early 2000s, 2008, and you haven't read it in a really long time, just read the back of the book, because there's no spoilers back there. It just catches you up with what's been happening in the series, and so you'll get any information that was actually important from book 6, which none at all, really. And again, it's a great refresher as well. So you've been forewarned. Skip book 6. It is utterly terrible. Just go from 5 to 7 and continue having a good time. The third paranormal romance series that I have gotten into is going to be Sherilyn Kenyon. Now, I have just started these, so I'm only on book 4. And it took me a while to figure out how to read these books, because they're so interconnected in this multiverse, or like metaverse, that Kenyon has created, that it's really hard to track how to read them. Because literally on Goodreads, I'll put a screenshot. A book will be like Dark Hunter 17, Werehunter 1. And it's like, how is this the 17th book and the first book? Or how is this the 11th book and the second book? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so I, for a long time, was stuck on how to read these books. And I was searching on YouTube and I could not find any information or like any type of true guidance. And so I just had to read the prequel, which is called Fantasy Lover. And so the Fantasy Lover is a great introduction to Kenyon's writing and the setup of her world, but it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the Dark Hunters or the Werehunter series. And the only way I can really explain it is that we have a lot of her writing is based off of ancient lore. So a lot of the characters come from ancient Rome, ancient Greece, ancient Celtic, Ireland, Scottish, like any part of the world that has ancient history, you will see characters in this book or in the overall series from her. And so each character has their journey where they kind of find love, and as they're finding love, you get the romance story between them and whoever their love interest is, but you also get side characters as well, and the overall theme of what's happening between the gods, because there are ancient Greek gods like Aphrodite and Apollo that are actually still involved in this world. Now it is an urban or like a paranormal romance because it is set in the modern day. These are just people who have been alive for centuries or thousands of years for whatever point. Like Archeron and Styx are two very big characters in the series, and they've been alive for like 11,000 years. So you'll see Styx and Archeron in individual books as you read them, but you won't get the entire picture of this story until you actually get to their book. And so there's not a order that you need to read them in, because again, it's individual people and you'll just see other characters that matter, but they'll get their own book in the future. And so in this world that she has set up, everybody's kind of like a vampire, but there's different types of vampires, and some of them hunt slayers who need to be taken out for whatever reason. And there are dark hunters who only hunt those who feed at night. There are were hunters, there are dream hunters, there's people who jump space and time. And so that's how you'll get where you might be following one person who's a were hunter, and you might have seen them in all of the dark hunter books interacting with different characters. But then when they get their own book, that's how we get to the point where it's like dark hunter number 7, were hunter number 1, because this is someone that we all know and we've seen him interact with other characters, but now they have their own book. So I hope that makes sense to you guys. I hope that's a better way of explaining how to read it. I have some books that I have enjoyed more than others. Like I said, Fantasy Lover doesn't really have anything to do with the actual like Dark Hunter series. It's just like a prequel of a character that you meet in the first book. But I did enjoy the romance between Julian of Macedon and Grace, and I feel like again it's a great introduction to Kenyon's writing. I did not enjoy Night Pleasures as much. I enjoyed again the overall theme of the world and how the gods can be cruel and how they dash out curses, how the vampire hierarchy is set up, and how it stemmed from like ancient Rome and ancient Greece. And so I enjoyed the background plot of Night Pleasures way more than I enjoyed the romance. I did not care for the romance, but in book 2, where we have Night Embrace, I actually enjoyed the romance and I enjoyed the overall theme. So I will say that it can be repetitive because again, each person is finding love in their own way, similar to like the J.R. Ward books or any other like series like this as well, where you're just following individual people who are all going to end up in some type of romantic relationship. But of course, these all have a heavy level of tragedy. So each character has dealt with some really dark things in their past. Some have been betrayed, some have lost the love, some have been like taken as slaves. Like every character has a dark part of their past, and so that keeps me more intrigued. And also it sells the story of romance when they actually finally do end up with the person that they're supposed to be with. But I'm told that like as the books go on, some are way more tragic than others, and some people actually don't find romance and don't find love. So I'm excited to keep going with the series, but this is something that I would recommend that you read as like a palate cleanser in between other books, as just a quick short read, because the first couple of books are like super short and then they get thicker. Like you can see Archeron and Styx are like way bigger books, but these are people who have been pivotal to every storyline and every character, and they've been alive for a lot longer. So when you get to the point where you're reading their stories as well, of course the book is going to be bigger and it's going to have more history. But you do not have to read these in order. And if you come across a character, if you read one book, right, you're going to interact with like 4 characters. If you like 1 or 2 of the characters, I say jump to that person's book. You don't have to read every single one because you're not going to like every single one. Again, I'm not sold on every romance that she tells, but I am interested in the overall world and how it's set up and how she can tie ancient Rome and Greece and Celtic history into vampires. Like, it's pretty cool. I'm excited to keep reading those, but I am reading them at a really slower pace. There are 2 other books that I ended up getting by this author named Kim Harrison that I've heard good things about, and like literally I got these for $4 from my local like indie bookstore. And I've heard good things about them. J.R. Ward is another author I haven't read from yet, and Andrews is another paranormal author that's greatly revered, and Halfway to the Grave, I know that people really enjoy those books, so maybe I'll check them out in the future. But these are just the ones that have been taking up my time. I have not been able to read anything else because of literally Guild and the Mac books, because they're just so freaking interesting. Now, I will put a disclaimer again that these books were written in like 2001, 2002, so they're kind of problematic. That's to be expected for the time period that they were written in, so I do take them at face value. And again, the first couple of books by Kenyon in the Hunter or the Dark Hunter series, and the first couple of books by Karen Manning are not their best work. The writing is very rudimentary, and it can be kind of annoying, especially because this is the time period where the beginning of the next book was nothing but a recap of the last book, because there was, you know, maybe 2 years or 3 years apart from the releases that you had to remind your readers what happened in the past book. So a lot of the times I felt like, okay, I literally just read this book 5 minutes ago, so this is kind of annoying, but that's just me, because I know that other people who read it, they did not feel that way. So it is fun to have, like I said, the glossary in the back of the book. But as the series continues and you get more to the books that were written in like 2012, 2014, the writing gets so much better. You just kind of have to suffer through the first couple of installments. I mean, for Kenny, you definitely don't, because they're more like companion novels than an entire series. And then if you jump to book 7 in the Manning books, she catches you up. There's an entire glossary in the back, and you'll be caught up to date. So that's something to consider whenever you're reading any book that was written a long time ago. I know I recently read Dune, and there was quite a few problematic things in there, but the book was written in like 1960 by a white man, so like, yeah, it's gonna be problematic a little bit. Anyways, thank you guys for stopping by and watching my videos. If you end up checking out any of the books in this video, definitely reach out to me on my Instagram or on Twitter. I would love to chat with them, especially about Guild, because I don't know anyone else who has read Guild. Like, to this day when I'm filming this, I am the only person I know in my friend group who has read Guild. And I need to talk about it without spoiling it. So if you read it, or if you have read it, hit me up. I want to chat.